Mr. Speaker, we are trying to cooperate much more with local authorities so that we can deal with the issues here. But in the end, the way to deal with this is to get the backlog down, get people out of high price accommodation so that we can integrate them if they're granted asylum.
Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have met with a number of British Palestinian families who are trying to reunite with their families in Gaza. Part of the entry clearance process requires biometrics to be undertaken. There is no visa centre in Gaza and they are unable to leave due to the closure of the Rafah crossing. Will the Home Secretary or the Minister please indicate whether they are willing to waive temporary biometrics so that people can undertake the entry clearance process?
I thank my honourable friend for her question. The death and destruction in Gaza is intolerable, and indeed Palestinians who wish to join family members in the UK must do so via the range of existing routes that are available. If she has a specific matter that she wishes to raise with me, I'd be very happy to meet her about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister tell this House what steps she is taking to tackle crime in rural areas, please?
As I said earlier in one of my answers, I've met with the Agricultural Equipment Association to discuss the implementation of the secondary legislation that's required around theft of agricultural equipment. And I've also having meetings with the rural crime units to discuss some of the specifics, but the neighbourhood policing guarantee applies in rural areas just as much as in urban areas, which is important.
Mr. Cattell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Tracy has set up the organisation Changes Are Made in memory of her grandson, Cameron Hamilton, who was fatally stabbed in Bournemouth Town Centre last year. Tracy believes deeply in the power of education and positive activities to tackle knife crime and is campaigning for a youth hub in our constituency. Can the Home Secretary update us on the progress made to rolling out a network of youth hubs, and will she support Tracy's campaign?
Can I pay tribute to her constituent Tracy for the campaigning and also in memory of Cameron. Too many young lives are being lost. That is why we're setting up the Young Futures programme with youth hubs, but also prevention partnerships to work across the country.
Julia Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In recent weeks, channel crossings have been far higher than the Home Office expected, and that's why we've seen ministers rapidly approving new asylum hotels. We're told this situation is temporary because asylum claims are apparently now being processed faster, moving people through accommodation faster too. What reassurances can the Minister give my constituents that the faster processing of asylum claims with no deterrent in the system will not simply act as a massive incentive for more people to come here on small boats?
I have to tell the honourable member that unfortunately before the last election the previous government cut asylum decision making by 75% in the run-up to the election, took away caseworkers, and that is why the backlog was soaring. We have now put caseworkers back into place so that we can start clearing the backlog because the asylum hotels are costing the taxpayer huge amounts of money.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Disabled women are almost 3 times more likely to experience domestic abuse and almost twice as likely to report sexual violence. So does my honourable friend, the Home Secretary, agree with me that it's not only important that her department, but also the police work with disabled women-led organisations to understand how this intersects with gender-based violence and the double whammy that affects disabled women?
The honourable lady is absolutely right, and I pay tribute to Stay Safe East, one of very few specialist disability and domestic abuse charities. But without buy and for services, we simply would not be serving most of the women in our country who need support.
Final question, Peter Bufford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A report today shows that 60,000 hours are taken up each year investigating non-crime hate incidents. Does the Minister agree with me that confidence in the police could be restored if they prioritise their time and resources to investigating actual crime than hurt feelings?
This government has made very clear what our priorities are around safer streets and where the focus should be for policing around halving knife crime, halving violence against women and girls over the next decade. The Home Secretary has also been very clear that a common sense approach must be taken with non-hate crime incidents, and we will work with the Inspectorate and the College of Policing on this matter.
Right, that completes questions. Call the Prime Minister, I should like to say a few words about our former colleague Lord Prescott. John was first elected to this House in 1970 and served the people of Hull for 4 decades. He became Deputy Leader of the Labour Party in 1994, in which my father also helped on that campaign, and Deputy Prime Minister at the 1997 election. And I've got to say thanks to John for coming to Chorley to ensuring a new start as a Labour member in Chorley. And I'll just share what John did. On that day, tragically, the press were pushing a lady over. Her arm was broken. And the first thing John said, I must go to that hospital. And he went to the hospital to see that lady as her cast was being put on. That was the kind of person that John Prescott was. He played a major role in delivering the Kyoto Protocol and was a great champion for regional government, integrated transport and affordable housing. After leaving government, he became an active inter-parliamentary relations, leading the UK delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. He was an effective politician, highly respected colleague and a towering figure in the Labour movement and in this House. He will be deeply missed, and all our thoughts are with Pauline and the family. I now call the Prime Minister on a point of order. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for those words which John's family will have heard. There are many members of this House who serve their constituents faithfully. Some deliver change for the entire country. Very few enter into public consciousness, let alone public affection. But John Prescott achieved all of those things. He was absolutely unique, and people loved him for it. He had the most extraordinary life, from failing his 11 plus, to stewarding Anthony Eden on a cruise ship, to being deputy leader of, as he described it, the greatest party that there is. And the longest serving deputy prime minister this country has ever had. An extraordinary life, Mr. Speaker. And yet, ordinary people across the nation felt that he was one of them. He told a story of working class lad made good, who embodied the aspiration of working people across the entire country. People felt recognised in the struggles they have, the snobbery, the small-mindedness that still plagues politics even today. But also they felt that he understood and championed their ambitions, their hopes and their dreams. He was a politician for working people through and through. That was who he always was, a proud son of Wales and also an honorary son of the Humber. He served the city of Hull for 40 years, as you said, Mr. Speaker, and everyone knew that he loved it as fiercely as he fought for it. Everything he did was about making working people's lives better, and that was evident from his whole career. A career where he was often ahead of his time, Mr. Speaker. He led, as you said, on climate change, fighting regional inequality, supporting the minimum wage, working to transform public transport, building council houses, and even completing the Channel Tunnel. In many ways, he set the path that we walk today. Because, make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, he did things his own way and forged his own path. And in doing so, he brought about some of the greatest transformation this country has ever seen, the linchpin of New Labour. Because beneath the pugnacious exterior, John was a skilled negotiator, sometimes with immense and perhaps surprising sensitivity. He had an incredible skill, which was the ability to bring people together from different starting points, whether that was his work on climate negotiations or closer at home in his own party, to stand together in a better place. And that sums up another thing that the public, I think, sensed about John. He was not in it for himself. He was willing to work with people that he didn't agree with, as well as challenge those that he usually did agree with. He had great self-awareness, great humility. And if he disagreed fiercely in private, he would do so. And then he would defend the line often improved because of his intervention, in public to the hilt. He was a team player, and he was proud to play for Team Labour. And Mr. Speaker, that was never more evident than during the campaign season, when it was time to bring out the battle bus, which has become a tradition our Deputy Prime Minister proudly continued this year. Because the Prescott Express was a morale boost to any campaign. It may have been arriving in a Tesco car park, but John was always met with a reception like Beatlemania. And no wonder, Mr. Speaker, the public were at the heart of John's politics. And it's clear the public had a particular place in their heart for him too. And that was key to his popularity. And indeed, after the famous incident, it was the public who came out swinging for him. Because that night, as you can imagine, Labour campaigners were anxiously dispatched to the most accurate focus group that there is, the local pub, to hear what people were saying. And reports, Mr. Speaker, were clear. The public had his back, just as he'd always had theirs. And so Tony Blair, my predecessor, said simply then, John is John. And he was, Mr. Speaker. John was John. And he will live on in Labour legend and in the memory, I think, of everybody in this House now and who served when he's been in the House, and in the affection of the nation. We remember today his wife, Pauline, and we send our love and condolences to his family and his loved ones. We stand with the people of Hull, the working people across the country, to say thank you, John, for a lifetime of service, for a genuine character, for a changed nation, and, Mr. Speaker, may he rest in peace. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bundinell.
Mr. Speaker, may I, on behalf of the opposition, put on record tributes from this side of the House to the late John Prescott. Lord Prescott will be remembered for many things. As a committed member of Parliament for his beloved constituency of Kingston upon Hull East, as a formidable campaigner for causes he believed in, and for his public service as Deputy Prime Minister. As I said last week, he was a true patriot and had a unique way of connecting with the electorate. Many of us did not know him personally, but his strength of personality was felt. For those of us who came into politics during the New Labour era, our experience of politics was shaped by Lord Prescott. He was a leading figure in making the Labour Party under Tony Blair electable after enduring 4 consecutive election defeats. In the process of broadening his party's appeal, he was someone who ensured that Labour thought about the needs, values, and aspirations of regular people across this country, not just those of a metropolitan elite. He was often underestimated, yet by all accounts, he was an intelligent, amusing, and relentlessly hardworking man with great political instincts. While I would doubtless have disagreed with him on many things, I would have loved the opportunity to argue with him about making our country better. So in paying tribute to the late Lord Prescott, I express my heartfelt condolences on my behalf and of my party, and I send sincere condolences to his family, his friends, and his colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Coulter.
To those points of order, Mr. Speaker, I rise today not just to pay tribute to my predecessor as the Member of Parliament for East Hull, but also as a family friend for over 50 years. In doing so, I send my heartfelt condolences to Pauline and the family. Many will remember John as a political giant, and indeed he was, but he was also a gentle giant to many. John always had time to chat to anybody who stopped him. Many members today will speak of the great work John did in both this House and outside of it. But I want to speak today about the John we knew in East Hull, both as our MP and, as he was to many, a very dear friend. East Hull was John's adoptive home, and it became such a strong part of his own identity. Everyone in East Hull has their own story of John, those that he helped, and there were many thousands of them. One of John's biggest legacies in Hull was the 55 million regeneration of Preston Road Estate in the heart of the constituency as part of the New Deal for Communities. And I'm told that John was the person in the cabinet who spearheaded that particular programme. But Mr. Speaker, I had the great pleasure and honour of knowing John all of my life. As kids, we enjoyed family holidays with the Prescotts. And I still keep a picture of me, JP, and the family hurtling down the log flume on my desk in my office. I keep it, Mr. Speaker, for a reason. John's clearly the person who's enjoying that the most. But one year, John decided we were going to go to Loch Ness to find Nessie. We didn't find Nessie, but we had the most amazing time with memories we'll never forget. During the voyage, Captain John thought it'd be fun to throw his watch overboard to test our diving skills. As kids, we didn't realise that John was an expert diver. But as it sank too far, we began to panic a bit. But John, with a big grin on his face, dived overboard, missing for, we thought, more than a few minutes, to put it mildly. But then he came up the other side of the vessel, holding the watch with a massive grin on his face. John's legacy will always be etched in the hearts of those he served and the city that he loved. There'll never be another JP, and no member of this House will ever be able to connect with the voters quite like JP did. He truly was one of a kind. John's spirit and approach to politics will live on in all of us who were inspired by him, inspired by his dedication and commitment to the cause. Rest in peace, comrade.
Yeah. Sure, David, leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was never on John Prescott's Christmas card list, but I did have the interesting task of shadowing him in the early noughties for 3 years, and I felt like I got to know him. My respect for him grew, though I was never sure if this was entirely reciprocated. I would occasionally tour the media studios with him, and on one occasion, John was getting his makeup on, and clearly hadn't realised I was outside the door, and he said to his aide, "Is that bloody Liberal here again?" We spoke more in later years when I was Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, as John always retained a deep and well-informed interest in all things climate, with his significant, globally recognised role in securing the Kyoto Climate Treaty. The government's chief climate negotiator in my time, the brilliant but sadly departed Pete Betts, had also been John's key negotiator at Kyoto. Pete would tell the story of how John's sheer energy and staying power were crucial to the success of those negotiations, and how John would tour the negotiating rooms throughout the night, uttering the great phrase, "I'm walking, I'm talking." Our paths also crossed in the great city of Kingston upon Hull, when we eventually managed to get Siemens to invest in a wind turbine manufacturing facility for offshore wind farms. There was a celebration on the day when the first sod was turned to build the factory, and the reception was held in what is called the Deep, a huge tourist attraction which John had played a crucial role in making happen down by the marina in Hull. The Deep is the UK's home to several species of shark. As we walked around it, being instructed about sharks, we were reliably informed that sharks can be very friendly. And though he'd never admit it in public, John was always very friendly to me. He was a trailblazer and an inspiration, even plunging into the Thames in a wetsuit to make an important point about water pollution. Exactly the sort of savvy, effective campaigning I, for one, admire. John will be missed by very many people, and so on behalf of bloody Liberals everywhere, I send my heartfelt condolences to Pauline, to John's children and grandchildren, and to all of his family and many friends.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. And further to that point of order, as Chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party, can I also echo the tribute made by the Prime Minister and send our thoughts and our love to John's family. And at the PLP tonight, we'll have our chance to reflect on the enormous contribution to the country and the party. And as a former Labour organiser, I can tell you he was beloved by our members. They would move mountains in Wales to go and see him. And although he himself said, when I do die, after 50 years in politics, all that they will show on the news is the 60 seconds of me thumping a fella in Wales. I think the many, many tributes over the weekend rightly reflected his immense contribution to the country, which should never, ever be underestimated. His drive to improve council housing, his championing of the minimum wage, his leadership on climate change, climate action, before it was a thing. A true socialist and thoroughly authentic. He only cared about making people's lives better. But back to that punch. There are many others here today who were close friends with John, who worked with him and knew him far, far better than me. We were, however, connected by one event. For I, as the youngest General Secretary of the Welsh Labour Party, organised his visit to Rhyl. Clearly not very well, although he never seemed to hold it against me, and he didn't get me sacked, which was an enormous relief at the time. There is so much I could say about that day. He was a trooper. He went back inside immediately after the punch and did this rather strange comedy show at the little theatre, but I won't test your patience, Mr. Speaker. The definitive guide is there in Matt Ford's podcast with Martin Angus, which I would recommend you all listen to. However, for those of us there in the background, in the footage, it just never goes away. And although he was right, that clip has been shown 1 million times again over the weekend. His legacy was always far, far bigger than a GIF. He will be much missed by our big Labour family.
Father House, Edward Lee.
I served for many years in this place with John Prescott, and of course I admired him from afar as a true Labour man, a man of true grit. I'm not sure that my admiration of him was reciprocated, but we did hold him in great affection. My first memory of him was when I arrived in this place as a new member of Parliament in 1983, and I gave a speech, and John was sitting down here, and I could see him grunting, obviously furious. He probably thought I was just an absurd young Thatcherite opinionated brat, and he was probably right. And talking of Mrs. Thatcher, my next memory of him was I went down to the little members' canteen, which we used to have downstairs, the members' canteen, and John was there having a quiet supper. And Mrs. Thatcher came in. And I always remember this, that the moment my boss, Mrs. Thatcher, came in, I could see John waving his hands with fury at her of all that she had done. And Neil Kinnock leant over and said, "Calm down, John, calm down, John." I just thought that here's a man of, real strong opinion. And we have so many anemic politicians around today. How wonderful it was. I'm not, of course, looking at anybody, of course. How wonderful it was to have a man like John Prescott on the other side of the chamber. Of course, he much mellowed, and it was a great joy to serve with him on the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And he did mellow, and I remember him saying that his children wanted to go on Celebrity Come Dancing, but he decided not to. But that would have been something for the history books, John Prescott on Celebrity Come Dancing. So really, I just want to end by saying that as a local member of Parliament, I want to pay tribute to him. And I do take my children, or I did take my children to the Deep, and all those things he did for Hull. And I wish some of you could have watched Hull North, which is our sort of small local television program last week, to see the tributes and what people were saying, local people, about how much he was so much loved in Hull and worked so hard for the people. A great man, and he will be sorely missed.
Steve Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was also deeply saddened to hear of the death of John Prescott, and my condolences also to Pauline and his sons and all who were close to him. I considered him to be a good friend of mine, and to Mansfield, he was a giant of a man and a champion of the coalfields, devolution, local government, and of course, climate action. I first met John in the 1980s as an activist in the Labour Party, and enjoyed supporting him both for his first campaign to be deputy leader in 1988 and again for leader and deputy leader in 1994. His legacy includes setting up the Coalfield Regeneration Trust, which was established to help support former coalfield areas and communities like Mansfield impacted by the pit closure programmes of the 1980s and 90s. This helped ensure that my area received millions of pounds of funding. John has a particularly strong link to my constituency of Mansfield, and particularly with my Labour predecessor, Sir Alan Meale, who was his parliamentary private secretary for some years. And anecdotally, I can recall many endearing memories of John, including a time when we were both playing table tennis in Sir Alan's front yard in Mansfield. A lovely sunny day, and we were enjoying our game in the garden on a day when the Prime Minister was out of the country on business. And an important call came through, which he had to take, and we paused our game. To this day, I have no idea who it was or what was said, but the conversation clearly distracted John, so much so that when he arrived back, he hit the ball with such force that it bounced right off the table and hit the ministerial car. And Mr. Speaker, from that experience, I can assure the House that the left hook still packed a mighty punch. In the years after John had left office, and after many visits to Mansfield, I would often drive him back to Newark or Doncaster station so he could get the train to London or back home to Hull. And Mr. Speaker, the insights from this frank and honest recollections of history from the Blair and Brown years will stay with me for a very long time. May you rest in peace.
Yes. Sir David Davies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I first arrived in the House, it was common amongst the Conservative Party, the Thatcherite Conservative Party, I say to my pallid friend, to view John Prescott as public enemy number one. And it was an act he loved playing into, in public at least. But that being said, he was, certainly to me, when he's outside the studio and outside the chamber, friendly, helpful, indeed almost the best possible constituency neighbour you could want. But he was also quintessentially a working class hero, something I suspect the current Deputy Prime Minister adopts as well. And of course, he was a brilliant and good constituency ally and a forceful defender of the interests of the people of Hull, with the emphasis on force. However, he was also a necessary champion of the new Labour Party. The Prime Minister referred to the fact that, implicitly, that he delivered one man, one vote. And I think we should remember that that was an act of huge courage for him to take on his own union allies, I think at about 1 hour's notice, and persuade them to support the new neophyte Tony Blair. And frankly, despite about his education and so on, he was a very, very unwise person who underestimated the intellect of John Prescott. He was a formidable innovator, you know, on looking at the Environment Secretary, on environment, on Europe, on devolution, on a whole range of things. He was a brilliant innovator. He was what we'd all hoped to be, not a creature of history, but a changer of history. And for that, we should always admire him. And as well, to put to one side all of those grand things, he also was greatly, greatly loved by his family. And on that basis, I offer my condolences to Pauline and the rest of the family.
Andy MacDonald.
Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to add my own few words to the tributes made, and especially welcome the comments of my honourable friend, the member for Kingston upon Hull. They were so clearly warm and personal. I just simply wanted to add that John Prescott's many achievements have already been told in terms of commitments to climate change and other matters. A truly authentic working class hero, somebody who would always attract a crowd wherever he went when he's on his famous battle bus, and he persevered with that through good times and in poorer times. But I think what sometimes may be missed is his commitment to devolution and the great efforts he made, certainly in the northeast of England, committing to the campaign for a Northeastern Assembly. We were not successful on that occasion. The referendum was not won, but ultimately John's legacy prevailed by the institutions, the devolved authorities that we've seen ever since. And on a personal note, Mr. Speaker, I just also want to put on the record my thanks to him for his personal support to me. I found myself propelled onto the shadow front bench a little bit prematurely and unexpectedly, but he was of great support to me in discharging the transport brief, and such immense knowledge that he retained, and at every single occasion he would offer that encouragement, for which I'll be eternally grateful. He was a true giant of the Labour movement. We will miss him enormously, but his legacy remains on, and I too would like to pass my sincere condolences to Pauline and to all of his family. Thank you.
Pete Wishart.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Scottish National Party, could we pass on our most sincerest condolences to Pauline, John's family, and to his many friends, colleagues and comrades right across the Labour movement. You have lost a colossus of a man and an inspiration to working class people right across the United Kingdom who were inspired to come into politics because of the example that John Prescott showed. I remember coming down here as a new MP in 2001, Mr. Speaker, and you would observe the Labour front bench titans, all of them, all known to the UK public, but predominant amongst all of them was John Prescott. And it was John Prescott the public wanted to hear from. When he appeared on the TV screens, that was when the public paid attention and listened to what he had to say. And there was this curious affection and resonance that he had with the British public that means something that if we could bottle it, I'm sure we'd all take a little bit of that and a sup of that today. And I'll never forget, as a candidate in 2001, who could, I think we all knew where we were in 2001 as a candidate when that famous incident came in that the member for Newport East has referenced. I was with a bunch of sixth formers at Brecon High School at a hustings, and I remember one of the senior people saying to me, if it's like that every day in your political life, I want a bit of that. So there's inspiration for you, Mr. Speaker. He was a huge music fan too, and I remember he was a great supporter of our music act in the MP4. We could never quite master the jazz that he seemed to favour, though maybe as tribute to him we'll maybe get round to doing one of these numbers, but it was something that he completely loved. And everybody's talked about his commitment to climate change, but it was also his commitment to devolution. A few colleagues have mentioned that. And I think it was John Prescott that was the engine that drove that path towards a Scottish Parliament and, of course, the regional assemblies, which will be happening as a matter of course with this new Labour government. He was a part of a generation, Mr. Speaker, that we are now sadly beginning to lose. But he will stand out as one of the true great parliamentarians in this House of the past few decades, and we will all miss him dearly.
John Pearce.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's so wonderful to hear all of the various tributes to John, and I just wanted to share my own memories of him. As some people have already mentioned, when it comes to campaigning, his big thing was his battle bus. And who wouldn't love touring the country, eating sweets with Martin Angus? And I'm sure the Right Honourable Member for Ashton-under-Lyne will attest to that. I have my own memory of John's battle bus, which is after the 2005 election. He got a small group of us together and we toured London as commuters were on their way to work at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, with John on the tannoy, thanking them all individually for voting Labour and for another 5 years of a Labour government, watching people literally stop in the street, confused by why a bus was talking to them, only to discover that it was actually the Deputy Prime Minister that was talking to them. Was incredible. He then took us all to his flat where, having had no sleep at all, he made us bacon sandwiches and tea. This was John at his best, generous, indomitable, and completely unpredictable. His incredible achievements and those of that Labour government will stand the test of time. He was the cement that kept that broad church of those new Labour governments together. And we will always remember him for that. And I just want to say, last year, my father died of Alzheimer's. And it's very difficult in those early days to actually remember the man who was before that cruel disease took them away. I really do hope that Pauline and his family are listening to the wonderful tributes that are being paid here in this house and around the country, and so that they can remember the extraordinary man and the extraordinary life that John was and lived. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sir Bernard.
Speaker, further to the point of order, I first collided, if that's the right word, with John Prescott when I was Shadow Secretary of State for Transport, as he ploughed on with his integrated transport plan, which was one of the centerpieces of the first Blair administration. I found that some of my colleagues very easily tried to treat John Prescott as a bit of a joke. That was a mistake. Yes, we teased him about his 2 Jags, and he rather loved that. But he was utterly sincere in what he did, and passionate and pretty brutal with his opposition opponents when he felt he was on top. We clashed again over the proposals for regional assemblies, and great campaigner that he was, he lost the North East referendum, and I don't think he ever really forgave me for that. But when required, he could be a great statesman. He was right to insist on a public inquiry into the Marchioness disaster, which the previous government had refused to hold. And he was right immediately to announce an inquiry into the Paddington rail disaster as soon as it had happened. And I recall getting the most surprising telephone call, one of the most surprising telephone calls of my political life. Having told the conference, the Conservative conference, he was right to call that public inquiry and we should wait for its outcome, I got a call from him to thank me for that bit of bipartisanship, which even he was capable of when the cameras weren't looking. And I do pay tribute to him for this, because the Cullen inquiry came up with a completely new safety regime for rail, including a rail accident investigation branch for the Department of Transport. We've never had a public inquiry into a rail accident ever since, because of the safety regime that he implemented following the inquiry. And every survivor of the Paddington rail crash and subsequent rail crashes is grateful to him for what he did for passenger safety on our railways. And we should remember him, if for nothing else, for that. And I send my best wishes to his family and to all his friends and colleagues on the other side of the House at this sad time.
Yeah. Julie Mims.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 particular memories of Lord Prescott that I would like to share. The first is from my time working for the disability charity Scope. We had decided as a campaigns team to use the 1997 general election to highlight the many obstacles that disabled people face when exercising their democratic right to vote. I and my campaign colleagues devised the Polls Apart campaign, which included a special campaign pack for candidates. Now, bearing in mind, this is in the halcyon days before email, a campaign pack was something of a rarity. And so we printed, stapled and posted out hundreds of packs to candidates the length and breadth of the UK, including one to the Labour candidate for Kingston upon Hull. Off it went, second class, and to our amazement, a week or so later, a reply came back saying not only did Mr. Prescott support the campaign, but that he'd written to all of Labour's candidates in his capacity as the general election coordinator, instructing them to take the campaign actions our pact suggested. And then more than that, when Labour was elected a few weeks later, he brought forward an amended Representation of the People's Act to make it easier for disabled people to exercise their right to vote. I had met John Prescott a few years earlier when I worked for the then Member of Parliament for Streatham, the Right Honourable Keith Hill. Both John and Keith were members of the RMT Parliamentary group, a group that was as broad and diverse as its talent was deep. I asked Keith ahead of my remarks today if he had any particular memories of John that I might share with the House. and he told me of one from his time as Minister in the Office for the Deputy Prime Minister. John and Keith were due to make a presentation on Labour's housing growth areas to the Prime Minister in the room one morning at 9 a.m. At 4 a.m, John was still working on the presentation and decided that he needed to know about the rail connections between Cambridge and Oxford. So he phoned Network Rail. Members can doubtless imagine the startled reaction of the poor Network Rail official who answered that call at 4 o'clock in the morning from someone claiming to be the Deputy Prime Minister and who had a very specific question about east-west rail links. Tony Blair was equally amazed at 9 a.m. that morning. "And did he tell you what the rail connections are?" asked the PM. "There aren't any," replied John. "We're going to change that." And now, thanks to the budget, that change will finally be delivered. A fitting tribute, perhaps, to the work ethic, energy, and enthusiasm for change that John Prescott exemplified.
Jeremy Corbyn. Mr. Speaker, and my condolences to Pauline and all of John's family at what must be a truly devastating time for them. David sent me a message just after John had died, and David used to work in my office, and he was very close to his father, who saw him as his hero and his friend, and I think we send our condolences to all of them. I obviously knew John in the House for many years, and when he was first elected, along with Dennis Skinner, they shared a flat in Clapham. I don't know what went on in that flat in Clapham, but whilst they were good friends, they were also very different characters. And I later learned that after the last vote ever took place in the House, Dennis and John would both leave to go back to the flat, but never travel together, because Dennis always made sure he got there first, so he could get hold of the one television in the flat and turn on and watch the darts or the snooker, whatever else. John would turn up and want to watch Newsnight. Dennis refused to change the channel. Said, "No way, you watch the darts with me." And you could sort of imagine the repartee and the arguments that were going on between them, which would have been incredibly funny. In the 2017 election, John offered to help in any way he could, and he was fantastic. And we had several events we did together. One day we started in Hull in the morning with a launch of our Arts Manifesto, and then went on a tour all around Yorkshire and Humberside in the famous bus. John seemed to know the owner of every fish and chip shop in the whole of Yorkshire and insisted on stopping at every fish and chip shop in Yorkshire. So we had a big supply of fish and chips all day long. And then we got to Scarborough, where we were doing a rally there in the pavilion by the seafront. And John and I got up to speak on the stage, and a lot of the people there, I don't think they really realized it was a political rally going on. They thought they were just there enjoying the sunshine. Then these two guys get up on the stage and start talking. Then they loved John because he brought out Freddie the Fox, and we had a long discussion about the evils of fox hunting, the evils of Tory fox hunting, the Tories who were always going to bring back fox hunting, the Tories who would kill the fox. Then he pulled Freddie out of his coat and said, "Look at poor Freddie here. They're going to tear him apart. That's what the Tories do to you." And he was loved for all of that. I want to say thank you to John for what he did, but also just remember one of the crucial points in his political career was the issues of climate change and Kyoto. It wasn't easy, it wasn't popular, it wasn't normal. A lot of people refused to even consider the issues of what we are doing to the natural world and the environment, and how there are limits to what you can do, and hence the protocol that he negotiated and signed up. And I think he was one of the very important people to start to change the global debate about climate change and respect for the natural world and environment. And I think we should all say thank you to John Prescott for that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The first time I met John Prescott in his role as Deputy Prime Minister was in 1997, when he opened up Admiralty Arch to 60 young homeless people for part of the winter shelter programme at the time, and it was a bitterly cold winter. And at the time, a Conservative backbencher, Crispin Blunt, said that this project would be treating an historic building as if it were a flagship for undesirables, Well, given that John was frequently described as undesirable by many of his opponents in his life, he took that as a badge of honour. And he was really, really proud of that homelessness project. I'll never forget the way he shared breakfast with those rough sleepers and took a real interest in every one of their lives. It was a testimony to his compassion, his practical politics, and also to his unwavering commitment to housing policy. Many, many millions of council tenants had home improvements with new windows, new doors, and home insulation, and none of them will ever forget that. They're all the basics that many of us take for granted, but which far too many people lacked at the time. In a superb biography by my former late colleague on The Independent, Colin Brown, naturally titled Fighting Talk, there was a lovely quote and a telling quote from John, and it was this: "There are those priests on the left who want to keep their consciences, and there are those who will get their hands dirty. I belong to the Dirty Hands Brigade." So John was regularly patronised. He was frequently underestimated, but he had the last laugh with delivery for real working people. For that, we'll all be grateful.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you. In the last 6 months of 2005, the United Kingdom took over the rotating presidency of the European Union, and Prime Minister Blair wanted to make a big success of it. One of their concerns is that there was a young British MEP who was prone to behaving very badly in the chamber and being particularly rude to visiting heads of state. And so John Prescott was sent to see me. He himself, of course, had served as an MEP and was a big project supporter, loved everything about the European Union. So he came to explain to me that it would be very bad for Britain if I was to stand up and cause a scene when Prime Minister Blair was speaking. I won't say that he threatened me, but I certainly felt deeply intimidated and behaved myself impeccably over the course of the next 6 months. That was perhaps the bruiser, John Prescott, but then a couple of years later, it was Remembrance Sunday, and the ceremony was over, the parades had finished, I was walking up Whitehall, and then to my astonishment, walking on his own, without any security, was the Deputy Prime Minister. And I said hello, and I wondered what he was doing, and he'd seen a group on the other side of Whitehall of Arctic convoy veterans. And of course, John, a seafarer himself, went over, spoke to the men who'd endured such appalling hardship in the last couple of years of the war, and said to them, "I'm going to fight and make sure that you guys get a campaign medal after all these years, recognizing what you've done." Well, they did get the medal, and I got the message, and I understood why he'd been so phenomenally successful from humble roots. He just connected, he got on with people, he was very, very human. So we mourn his passing, but perhaps also we mourn the passing of big working class characters in politics. We need far more of them.
Bill Esterson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. John had many connections with the northwest of England, as you well know. He went to school on the Wirral. He was a parliamentary candidate in Southport and returned there to campaign in that 2017 general election. And of course, he was a seafarer out of Liverpool, and he was presented with a trophy by Anthony Eden, who the Prime Minister mentioned earlier. The trophy was for winning a boxing bout on board the ship. And it was there that he honed his craft, that maybe led to what we know him for so famously later on. And when I came in here in 2010, I bumped into him in the committee corridor. He was sitting at a desk working. And he said he was there because despite being the former Deputy Prime Minister, he was having to share an office with 4 other members of the House of Lords. He'd recently been ennobled and moaned about the fact there was no preferential treatment for him. But in spite of the moan, he was getting on with the job as John always did. But my favourite story of him is in that 2010 election campaign. The battle bus turned up on Grand National Day outside Entry Racecourse, and he had a campaign to keep the Grand National free to air on terrestrial TV. And there he was with his speakers, his loudspeakers, haranguing the racegoers to come and sign his petition, which they did in their droves. And not only did they sign the petition, they then queued in large numbers for selfies with John, because it goes to this point about the affection in which he was held. And it will stay with me forever just what an impression John had that day. And when I came in here and was serving in this place as he was serving in the Lords, he was a source of terrific advice to me. And I'm proud to have counted John as a friend over the years. I wish my best to Pauline, to David, and to the rest of his family. May John rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the point of order, when I was elected to Beverley and Holderness in 2005, John Prescott was, of course, already a legend and the MP for neighbouring East Hull. And he was, of course, the word-mangling, fast-fisted former bar steward who had, for the last 8 years, been Deputy Prime Minister of this United Kingdom. And hearing the tributes from across the House today, hearing all the ways that that one man was able to influence history and make a difference is an inspiration, I think, hopefully to working class aspirant politicians all over the country, but also to people in this House as well. But I knew him a few years before I entered Parliament, because he came to Cambridge for a transport summit. So I organised a demonstration against this happening and stood there outside all day. And more, of course, as the day went on, he didn't come out. So eventually, when he did come out, I was just about the only demonstrator left. So I immediately berated him and his entourage, and we then had a surreal dance around the car park before he went straight up to this Jaguar and tried to get in. It wasn't his. I think it took quite some time for him to forgive me for that. I would see John regularly, as do colleagues from Hull, such as the member for Hull North, who's sitting on the front bench opposite, on Hull trains, normally surrounded by papers and at a four-place table, trying to keep it entirely to himself.
In Gaza. So this is very difficult. It's like, how do you sort of, after terrible things have been done, you then have to sort of, you have to bring prosperity to Gaza, and that's the thing that will ensure, provided kids are not taught to hate and there's long-term prosperity, I think there will be peace in Gaza. And we see an example of that after World War II, where with Germany and Japan, they were defeated. They obviously did terrible things, but changed the education system. And unlike World War I, we helped rebuild Japan and Germany. The Marshall Plan. Instead of exacting vengeance, America insisted, we're going to help rebuild Germany. We're going to help rebuild Japan. And now they're our allies. And there's been no war ever since.
Hi, welcome to Delaware County. And I want to say congratulations on the successful redocking of your.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was a great week. We had the Tesla sort of cool autonomous car and robot stuff, which I think is going to be really, really great. I think, who wouldn't want their own personal C-3PO R2-D2? It'd be awesome, So I think that we're going to build some awesome like helper robots and autonomous cars, and then I mean, this is a good day. Fate is smiling upon us here. Thank you. And we caught the rocket, which is just totally nuts.
Yeah. Amazing.
You see that rocket booster? It's the largest, heaviest flying object ever made, and it just got caught by Mechazilla arms. Kind of like Karate Kid, but bigger. Catch on the fly with the chopsticks.
So
yeah.
my question is, do you think there is a shadow government behind the Biden-Harris administration?
I mean, well, let me put it this way: it's not Biden. We know that for a fact. Okay. The dude's like barely got 2 functional neurons, so you know it's like, and he just seems to be at the beach a lot, and
So
he's obviously not in charge. So I mean, when the polls started going low on Biden, he was saying, "Oh, he's staying in the race, he's staying in the race," but then I guess the real powers that be told him he's not. You know, it's like,
so who is it
like,
that's behind him? We know Obama, okay, but Obama.
I mean, I'm just as curious as you are. You know, it is as far as I can determine, that there isn't any one sort of puppet master. It's more like there's 1,000 or I don't know, a lot. But I mean, I'd like to talk to them to understand more about. Listen, what are your goals, puppet masters? I'm just curious. I mean, maybe I agree with some of them. It's possible. But it's just obvious that Biden's not in charge. It's obvious that Kamala's not in charge. I mean, they just replaced the Biden puppet with the Kamala puppet, very obviously. And so you can tell, like, if the teleprompter stops working, then the puppet breaks. And it's like, oh, the puppet just starts looping because the teleprompter broke. I don't have a teleprompter. I can just talk like a normal human. So I mean, I think it's not, from what I can tell, it's not one puppet master, it's many, but, you know, it'd be interesting to see the crossover between the Epstein client list and Kamala's puppet masters. I bet there's a lot of names that appear in both lists.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Diddy too. Diddy did it.
Elon, my name is Gregory Stenstrom. I'm from here, Delaware County. Two people who know me. In my hands, you asked earlier if you'd like to go to a hand count. We have 3 federal suits right now. One, because we know for a fact, and we have proof, that the election code in the machines in Dominion and Hardin Civic are fraudulent here, right here in Delaware County. Secretary of State Jonathan Marks admitted this in court last week.
Wow, he did?
In court, on a transcript.
I didn't read about that. For some reason,
Well, of course you didn't.
For some reason, the
how many people
the
here know
legacy
me?
media forgot to report about that one.
How many people here know me? Quite a few.
I mean, I usually keep up with these things, and I did not know that.
Well, we're also co-defendants. Leah Hoops and myself, also from Delaware County, we're co-defendants with President Trump and Rudy Giuliani in a defamation suit where we proved over 952 days.
And oh, by the way, I came here because my daughter goes to school here. She told me to come over. I used to be really, really active in promoting, you know, Trump campaign 4 years ago, and I got burned out, and I'm so frustrated, and it's all because of the cheating. So, what are we going to do with that?
Well, there is, I think, some amount of cheating that takes place. It's hard because they've, you know, when you have mail-in ballots and no sort of proof of citizenship, it becomes almost impossible to prove cheating is the issue. So a lot of people, you know, a lot of people in the Dem say, and I'm like, you've made it impossible to actually prove that that there's cheating. But statistically, there are some very strange things that happen that are statistically incredibly unlikely. So, you know, there's always this sort of question of, like, say, the Dominion voting machines. It is weird that you know, I think they're used in Philadelphia and in Maricopa County, but not in a lot of other places. Doesn't that seem like a coincidence? So I think that is, you know, in my view, we would only do ballots counted. A lot of the last thing for it's too easy to hack. It's too easy to add just one line. big enough, then it, you know, as they say, it's got to beat the cheat. Yeah. So that's it.
Elon, first off, you're my hero, and I love your sneakers.
Thank you.
So if you do choose to be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, Doge.
Yep. What do you think about we stop giving money to other countries such as Israel, Ukraine, and we stop funding forever wars that most likely is going to the deep state anyway?
Yeah. Well, I think in general, the amount of waste that happens with the federal government is really staggering. It's a staggering amount of waste of taxpayer money. And if we're, you know, for any given expenditure, we have to say, well, what does this do for the citizens of America? Like, how is this good for the people of America? It's their money. Like, for some weird reason, a lot of people in the sort of, you know, state or whatever, the politicians, they seem to forget that the money being spent is your money. And if it's not being spent in a way that is beneficial to the American people, it's a misuse of the funds. So, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of money that's being spent where sort of illegals are getting more benefits than citizens. Like, what the heck is that? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Hi, Elon. So as we bring government spending and look inward to our country, I am a government employee. I care about innovation and efficiency. With your vision for a Department of Government Efficiency, you know, what can we do? How can we support you? And also, how can we spot like the needs of people in North Carolina? The body count is abnormally underreported. You know, what can we do to press on that and to support people within our country?
Sure. Well, I do think that you know, government efficiency is not simply about reducing the size of government, but making sure that there are incentives for excellent work. You know, so if somebody's, you know, whatever you incent will happen. So if you have incentives for excellent work, and if by the same token, if someone's not doing excellent work, they're exited. Just like normal. It's really what happens in a properly functioning company is that you reward, or think of a sports team. The players that are doing well, they get rewarded, and the players that are not doing well, they exit the team. And that should just be how it works. And I think that'll have a profound effect on the effectiveness of government, because so whatever you incent will happen. So if the incentives are aligned with you know, with saving people in North Carolina, then that's what'll happen. But if you know, if you have a sort of a failed response to the disasters, to the hurricane disasters, and no one even gets fired, well, okay, what do you expect? No one's going to take action. You know, so people have, if there's a track record of failure, you have to exit the people who failed. Otherwise, people will look around and say, well, I guess I don't need to do anything because, you know, nothing bad happens to you, even if you do a terrible job and people die, which is insane. So.
Hi, Elon. Hey, Elon. Can you tell us about your trip to Israel?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very moving trip. So, you know, it's a very moving trip. Definitely one of the toughest regions to, you know, like, how do you, what set of actions results in the greater good in Israel? I mean, obviously, you cannot have, if they want to slow down everyone in Israel, you got to stop that. There's no, you know, there's no way. Those people either need to be killed or incarcerated, or they will simply try to kill more Israelis. This is what it amounts to, obviously. And they want to kill Americans too, by the way. You know, generally, like, Israel is referred to as the little Satan in America. We are the big Satan. That's what the Ayatollah calls us. So, you know, so I think, you know, I think a lot of what's happening there is people are being taught to hate, you know, in Gaza from when they're like children. They're taught to hate, and that's really the thing that needs to stop for there to be, you know, long-term peace, hopefully. is that you just cannot have the kids be taught to hate from the moment they can talk. That's fundamental. So, yeah. So, so I think there's it's kind of a three-step process there, which is you've mentioned one has to do the difficult thing, which is to yes, eliminate Hamas, and then I think also going forward, anyone who's teaching hatred in Gaza or elsewhere, they need to stop doing that. That can't be acceptable. We have to stop, kids being taught to hate America in America. So. And then the third thing that's also very important. In Gaza. So this is very difficult. It's like, how do you sort of, after terrible things have been done, you then have to sort of, you have to bring prosperity to Gaza, and that's the thing that will ensure, provided kids are not taught to hate and there's long-term prosperity, I think there will be peace in Gaza. And we see an example of that after World War II, where with Germany and Japan, they were defeated. They obviously did terrible things, but changed the education system. And unlike World War I, we helped rebuild Japan and Germany. The Marshall Plan. Instead of exacting vengeance, America insisted we're going to help rebuild Germany. We're going to help rebuild Japan. And now they're our allies. And there's been no war ever since.
Hi, welcome to Delaware County. And I want to say congratulations on the successful redocking of your.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was a great week. We had the Tesla sort of cool autonomous car and robot stuff, which I think is going to be really, really great. I think, who wouldn't want their own personal C-3PO R2-D2? It'd be awesome, So I think that we're going to build some awesome like helper robots and autonomous cars, and then this is a good day. Fate is smiling upon us here. Thank you, and we caught the rocket, which is just totally nuts.
Yeah. Amazing.
We see that rocket booster. It's the largest, heaviest flying object ever made, and it just got caught by Mechazilla arms. Kind of like Karate Kid, but bigger. Catch on the fly with the chopsticks.
So
yeah.
my question is, do you think there is a shadow government behind the Biden-Harris administration?
I mean, well, let me put it this way: it's not Biden. We know that for a fact. Okay. The dude is like barely got 2 functional neurons, so it's like, and he just seems to be at the beach a lot, and
so
he's obviously not in charge. So I mean, when the polls started going low on Biden, he was saying, oh, he's staying in the race, but then I guess the real powers that be told him he's not. It's like,
so who is it that's behind him? We know Obama, okay, but Obama.
I mean, I'm just as curious as you are. It is. As far as I can determine, there isn't any one sort of puppet master. It's more like there's 1,000 or I don't know, a lot. But I mean, I'd like to talk to them to understand more about. Listen, what are your goals, puppet masters? I'm just curious. I mean, maybe I agree with some of them. It's possible. But it's just obvious that Biden's not in charge. It's obvious that Kamala's not in charge. I mean, they just replaced the Biden puppet with the Kamala puppet, very obviously. And it's, you can tell, like, if the teleprompter stops working, then the puppet breaks. And it's like, oh, the puppet just starts looping because the teleprompter broke. I don't have a teleprompter. I can just talk like a normal human. So I mean, I think it's not, from what I can tell, it's not one puppet master, it's many, but, you know, interesting to see the crossover between the Epstein client list and Kamala's puppet masters. I bet there's a lot of names that appear in both lists.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Diddy too. Diddy did it.
Elon, my name is Gregory Stenstrom. I'm from here, Delaware County. Two people who know me. In my hands, you asked earlier if you'd like to go to a hand count. We have 3 federal suits right now. One, because we know for a fact, and we have proof, that the election code in the machines in Dominion and Harlingen Civic are fraudulent here, right here in Delaware County. Secretary of State Jonathan Marks admitted this in court last week.
Wow, he did?
In court, on a transcript.
I didn't read about that. For some reason,
Well, of course you didn't.
For some reason, the
How many people
the
here know
legacy
me?
media forgot to report about that one.
How many people here know me? Quite a few.
I mean, I usually keep up with these things, and I did not know that.
Well, we're also co-defendants. Leah Hoops and myself, also from Delaware County, we're co-defendants with President Trump and Rudy Giuliani in a defamation suit where we proved over 952 days that there was massive election fraud in 2020. We proved it in court. It's a matter of public record. We also have the proof that the election machines that are currently being used are fraudulent. We have videos right now that I can show you of ballot boxes being stuffed here in Delaware County, Montgomery County, Chester County, and across the state.
Okay.
We have that video. We have submitted this to the 3 federal cases. We have a SCOTUS case right here.
Yeah.
And the SCOTUS case is just simple. It asks the DOJ to rescind their policy not to investigate election fraud.
Which seems crazy.
We are being blocked.
Yeah, I mean, this
blocked.
DOJ is doing a great. Don't know what just take the J out of the name. You know, just Department of Injustice.
What I'd like you to do, Elon, is I don't want to take too much time, and I know this is kind of a shock, but we have a book here, Parallel Election. I have the Supreme Court case.
Yeah.
And I have the federal suits here. We've called your people. We've called the people who are supposed to be helping. We have hundreds of people right now ready.
Yeah.
They're out taking videos. They're training poll workers. And we are not getting support from many of the people in the front rows here. And their pictures, if you want to know who they are in this book.
Well, let's what I recommend is to post content on the X platform, and then people can argue and say it's right or wrong, but you know, if you have videos or evidence, then post them publicly on social media, and then people can you know, judge for themselves. Exactly. Okay, great, excellent, thank you. But anyway, let's not get contentious. This is I think, you know, teamwork makes the dream work here. If whatever the situation, I don't want to dissuade anyone from voting. It's very important to vote. So you know, any actions with respect to voting machines and whatnot, we certainly want to put them under intense scrutiny. But it's nonetheless, everyone needs to vote. And like I said, if you leave here with one thing, the goal is to register as many people as possible to vote. That is the goal, and we only have until Monday night. That is the goal. One mission, bam.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. First, I want to thank you as somebody with a spinal cord
because not many people are. I won't take up the time, but 18,000 people a year are injured. So thank you.
Absolutely, and I'm hopeful that Neuralink can do a lot. Actually, initially providing the ability for anyone who's lost the brain-body connection to be able to interface with their phone and computer faster than a human with working hands, which is, I think, really cool. But down the road, I think it'll be possible to restore a whole body functionality if you have a Neuralink in the motor cortex that then shunts past where the neurons are damaged in the spine. I'm confident that long term you can actually restore people's ability to walk and use their hands.
Well, I would love. I appreciate it. I would love to work with you on getting support around here, but.
In fact, one of the things that, and to be fair, the FDA has been, within the context of their current rules, has been actually quite supportive. They've given us sort of express lane, because they've seen the quality of the work and the sophistication of the technology. That they have given us sort of fast track approval, but still our progress is limited by regulatory issues. And that's the same thing that's happening with SpaceX. It's like SpaceX can build a giant rocket faster than the license can be processed by the government, which is insane. So, I should mention, like, one of the most fundamental things about me supporting, and maybe the biggest showstopper of all for me, in terms of why I feel Donald Trump must win, is that we have to have sensible regulations. We have so many regulatory. Last time I checked, we have 428 agencies. There's more than an agency a year has been created since America was a country. It's like we've got almost twice as many agencies as years that America has been a country, which means an agency has been created. There's like sometimes two new agencies per year created, which is just madness. So America is being smothered by overregulation. It's like I call it slow strangulation by overregulation. That's the, yeah.
Well, I would like to ask about natural gas and lithium. That's kind of what, Pennsylvania is rich of natural resources and fracking gas and lithium, which could benefit not only our state, but our entire country. However, many residents, and I have to be honest, along 350 miles of Pennsylvania, had real challenges like eminent domain and the destruction of water sources, such as what happened with the Marin East pipeline. How can we ensure that while utilizing these resources, we work closely with local governments and residents without the federal government overreaching and forcing land from homeowners? Effective communication with citizens and their involvement in these decisions is crucial. What role do you see for technology or private industry in making sure that this process is transparent and fair? Because believe you me, lots of people were forced with eminent domain and aquifers poisoned all across Pennsylvania, including our veterans. And this has been a real problem since 2016. So we want to support our workers and use our gas, but we need to be careful of what we're taking from people who've lived here, families for centuries.
Certainly, I believe in sensible regulation. So, but what I see happening is that there are all sorts of, there's a mountain of rules that actually don't benefit people, and then there's missing rules that do benefit people. So it's this bizarre Kafkaesque nightmare of regulations where ultimately the good of the people is not served. And we get regulatory delays for things that are fake. Meanwhile, bad things are allowed to happen simply because someone filled out the paperwork and gamed the system. So that's what I mean. It's when I say like Department of Government Efficiency, I mean addressing addressing any issue which is not in the interest of the people. And we do need to, at times, fight against what large corporations are pushing for, because some of them are very short-term, and some large corporations do bad things. Corporations are like people. Like some people are good people. It's like, some corporations are good, some are sort of middling, and sometimes some corporations are bad. And it's just like people. It's the way to think of corporations. So we've got to stop the corporations that want to do bad things. make sure they're doing things that are in the interest of the people. And then corporations that want to do good things, they shouldn't be slowed down by smothering regulation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I think these things should be done very much. So sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yeah.
Hey, Elon, how are you? I'm Rob. These are two tough acts to follow here, but my question is a little more simple. What are some of the first courses of action you plan to take as the head of government efficiency if Trump gets elected? And do you have any areas of concern in particular?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I definitely, the focus right now is making sure that Trump wins the election. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And I think if Trump loses, we're going to see, our cities are going to get less safe. The border's obviously going to be wide open. We're going to see government spending go ballistic. It's inflation go nuts. It's going to be just bad on every level. And like fundamentally, if the current trend of strangulation by overregulation is not turned around, we will never get to Mars. It just will be illegal. And there will be a one-planet civilization. There won't be a space-faring civilization, and Starfleet will never be real. And we want Starfleet to be real. Yeah. So, I've had quite a bit of interaction with the government, because SpaceX is the biggest NASA contractor, actually. Does a lot of work for NASA. And I'm a big fan of the agency, by the way. But there's, there are expenditures that don't make a lot of sense, that are wasteful. And we need to put a stop to that. Honestly, there's so much government waste that's going on that I would call it a target-rich environment. Like, it's hard, like in every direction. There's this just mad waste. And I think simply, if people simply know that, well, if they waste a ton of taxpayer money, they're going to get fired, that will immediately improve the situation. Immediately. It's like, yeah, it's just literally, and I think, but actually it's going to be both carrot and stick. It's like, so if a government official is very effective in spending your money, because taxpayer money is your money. So, if they're effective in spending your money, they should be promoted. They should be rewarded. And if they waste your money or do something that's basically corruption, they should be fired. Obviously, they have a duty to spend your money well. Yeah.
Hey, Elon. As a veteran who was deployed because of a lie that was told 21 years ago.
It's a lot of lies, man.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of lies.
So with Harrison Laws running on a campaign to make disinformation illegal,
yeah, disinformation just means information they don't like.
So what would you say?
Yeah.
So what would you say to an administration and a candidacy that is spreading lies or disinformation about the troops that are currently in combat, my friends?
Yeah, can you believe that was said?
And Hunter Biden's laptop, president's decline, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, during the Trump-Kamala debate, she said there was no active duty soldiers out there. I'm like, I know a whole bunch of them. What are you talking about? That's a shameful, terrible lie. Shit, and she wasn't even fact-checked. And I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just like to say, for the people, for the Americans out there who are serving in dangerous places right now, unlike what Kamala said, thank you for your service to the country.
Elon, thank you for stepping up to help America when you don't have to. Like, you could be on an island, but
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I could be, you know, yeah, I have a lot of jobs. No, it's true. I mean, there are, you know, a lot of people I know who are on a yacht, sipping a Mai Tai, whatever, in an island, you know, haven't, you know, that is a thing I could be doing. I can't do that if I think the future of civilization is at stake, which I do. You know.
One, do you know Alberto Congawala? He's the system manager for Europa Clipper.
Oh,
which you
but
sent,
that's a cool mission, by the way.
Which you sent into space on Monday.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you very much.
Absolutely. In fact, that was a mission where I talked to, you know, SpaceX. It's like, you know, every mission's important, but, you know, this mission's excellent. So, yeah, because I'm like, you know, I want to. I think like you, like I think most people. I want a future where you look forward to it and you're excited about what's going to happen. That we're going to learn new things. That it's going to be better than the past. You know, and a future where we're a spacefaring civilization, and we're out there among the stars, where Star Trek is real. You know, that's exciting. To be like, life can't just be about solving one problem after another. There have to be things that inspire you. You know?
Hi,
Yeah, that's a hard one to build, but at some point we should build a warp drive. But you know, but even without the warp drive, the Starship, the rocket made by SpaceX, is capable of building a city on Mars and a city on the Moon. That's what it's designed to do. But we're being massively slowed down by regulatory molasses. And I'll tell you, like, a crazy thing. Like, we got fined $140,000 by the EPA for dumping fresh water on the ground, drinking water. It's crazy. Like, I'm just an example of just how crazy it is. And we're like, well, we're using water to cool the launch pad during launch. You know, we're going to cool the launch pads so it doesn't overheat. And in an excess of caution, we actually brought in drinking water, so clean, super clean water. And the FAA said, no, you have to pay a $140,000 fine. And we're like, but Starbase is in a tropical thunderstorm area. Sky water falls all the time. That is the same. So, and it's like, we didn't actually, there's no harm to anything. And they said, yeah, we didn't have a permit. We're like, you need a permit for fresh water? Are you, what? Yeah, it's just totally crazy stuff like that. And then they said, if we don't pay the fine, they're not going to process any of our future applications. So they're like, this is the kind of crazy stuff we're dealing with. Yeah. So.
Hi, Elon. My name is Sarah. I'm from Philadelphia. I have a whole team here. First of all, I am really excited about your recapping of this rockets and your Hyperloop program. We actually, at this critical moment, have a proposal to turn the blue red quickly. I would like to sincerely to accept our protocol. The proposal, you know, we want to have some further discussion with you, and really thank you for putting everything you have, risking everything you have to support President Trump to take our country back.
Well, thank you. Sure. Thanks. Hey. All right.
Yeah, we shake the hand. Last week, I also fly to the Austin to find you. So glad you are here. Welcome. I used to have a business 17 years here.
Great. All right, sounds good. All right. So, yeah. Well, I'll take a few more questions and then wrap it up. Yeah, so go ahead.
Elon, hi, my name's Kevin, and I grew up right in Springfield, close by, and I want to thank you for all you've given up. You were the media darling, and you've sacrificed everything for freedom right now, and I want to thank you for my family and everything.
Yeah.
I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the lives that have been saved with your full self-driving. And all the future lives will be saved with that. That is one of the bravest things you. Thank you. I use it every day.
You're most welcome. Yeah, I think it will save many lives and many serious injuries, and also give people their time back, so they can just be in their car and do whatever they want and watch movies or whatever they want to do. It'll be great.
I absolutely agree. My question for you is, and this is a very confusing thing in Pennsylvania. Do you think that we should, as a voter, vote in person, wait until voting day to vote in person, or do a mail-in ballot right now?
I think you should do you should vote immediately right now. Yes.
Can you explain real quick why?
Should you have a pen? I don't know if does somebody have a pen or something. All right, nice to meet you. All right. Yeah, so where were we? Oh, yes, vote, yes, register and vote early. Yeah, I would say vote immediately. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, well, I'll take one more question and then we'll call it a wrap.
This is Matt here. This is Matt from East West IT Services here, and I'm the chairman for the Pennsylvania Chinese Coalition. We have more than 40 Chinese groups and also different kinds of association. And I'm from Philadelphia. We are the team, and I want to know, could you give us Pennsylvania swing state, especially in Philadelphia, there's a lot of Democrats. So could you give us three top reasons why people should vote for Donald Trump?
Sure. Well, the reasons that resonate are going to be different depending on who you're talking to. But I think the ones that resonate for me at least are, we want safer cities, we want a secure border, we want sensible government spending, we want support of the Constitution and the right to, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, and that's what Donald Trump is going to do. So. And the other thing I think is maybe a concern is that I think if there's 4 more years of sort of the Kamala sort of puppet regime, they're actually going to legalize so many illegals in the swing states that there won't be swing states anymore, and this will be the last election in that case, and will be a permanent one-party state like California. And in California, they recently, in California, which is mind-blowing, They passed a law banning voter ID for any election in California whatsoever. Now they're going to try to do that nationwide. In fact, if they can, they will do it nationwide. If the Dems win, they'll ban voter ID nationwide. So that's why I think if Trump doesn't win, this is the last election. Yeah. Thank you.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA. Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be here. And, you know, the true test of someone's character is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot. Fight, fight, fight! Blood coming down the face. Now, America is the home of the brave. And there's no truer test than courage under fire. So who do you want representing America? Yeah, absolutely. And I think this election, I think it's the most important election of our lifetime. This is no ordinary election. The other side wants to take away your freedom of speech. They want to take away your right to bear arms. They want to. They want to take away your right to vote effectively. You got 14 states now that don't require voter ID. California, where I used to live, is just passed a law banning voter ID for voting. I still can't believe that's real. So how are you supposed to have a proper election if there's no ID? It's just meaningless. And free speech is the bedrock of democracy. And if people don't know what's going on, if they don't know the truth, how can you make an informed vote? You must have free speech in order to have democracy. That's why it's the First Amendment. And the Second Amendment is there to ensure that we have the First Amendment. President Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. He must win to preserve democracy in America. Yes. This is a must-win situation. Must win. So I have one ask for everyone in the audience, everyone who watches this video, everyone on the live stream. This one request. It's very important. Register to vote. Okay, and get everyone you know. And everyone you don't know, drag them to register to vote. There's only 2 days left to register to vote in Georgia and Arizona, 48 hours. Like, text people now, now. And then make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election. That's my prediction. Nothing's more important. Nothing's more important. So get everyone you know. Everyone. So I'm speaking to people out there. Everyone in the crowd, I think, is already convinced. But for people out there that are watching the video, watching the live stream, you need to get everyone you know, at work, your friends, family, text groups, your social media, everything. Get them to register to vote right now. Only 2 days left for Georgia and Arizona. Only a couple weeks left in Pennsylvania. And if they're not registered to vote, it doesn't matter at that point. register to vote. I'm being repetitive for a reason, okay? So nothing is more important. And a lot of people think maybe their vote doesn't count. Well, it does, okay? It does. It matters. And this election could be decided by 1,000 votes, 500 votes. A tiny margin. So get everyone you know to register to vote. I believe that's swapthevote.com. I believe that's the site. And double check that your registration is good. Don't take it for granted. I'm just being repetitive about this point because it is the one takeaway more than anything that will matter is getting those registrations and then getting everyone you know to actually vote. That is what will decide this election, especially in Pennsylvania. So thank you, and honestly, you want to just be a pest. Just be a pest to everyone you know, people on the street, everywhere. Vote, vote, vote. Fight, fight, fight. Vote, vote, vote. Thank you. And you know what? I'm being told at times that these are like right-wing values. I'm like, are you insane? This is literally the fundamental values. I lived in Pennsylvania for 3 years, by the way. I'm no stranger to the state. I lived in the city for 3 years. I went to school here. So, so I know the state. I'm not some, just arrived situation. I've been here, spent 3 years of my life here. So it's a great state. Love it, and yeah, yeah, it was awesome. But the thing is, like I was talking to friends of mine who, like when I went to Penn, it was very dangerous at the time, but everyone thought it would get better would get better as the years went on. One of the issues was like students would get killed from time to time, and that's pretty bad, obviously. And I was talking to someone who recently graduated from Penn. They said, actually, it's worse. And I'm like, it's worse? What the hell is going on? It's like, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the reality is that if someone is a violent criminal, where they either are unable to control their violence or they like it, if you do not incarcerate them, they will hurt people. That's what it comes down to. So if you don't put hardened criminals in jail, they will kill people. That's what it comes down to. And that's, unfortunately, the situation we have here is that the Democratic Party will not put hardened criminals in prison. And so they roam free, and they prey upon you, and your kids, and your family, and your friends. This is insane. How can we be the most powerful country in the world, and it's not safe to walk around our cities? What the hell is going on? Yeah. I mean, Soros, honestly, misanthropic. He's for someone who has, sort of claims to be doing good, but actually he is not. He is tearing down the fabric of society. So terrible. Yeah. But I think it's just unbelievable that like you should be able to feel safe walking around American cities. And it's not just Philadelphia has a challenge. New York has a challenge. Every major city in the U.S. Like my mom lives in New York, for example. 3 of her friends have been assaulted on the street this year. It's like, and it's getting worse. And now, when she takes her dog for a walk, she has to stay, inside of the building so she can call for help if need be. This is not the future we want. And if we get 4 more years of this, I mean, we're going to be fully Mad Max, And it's like, well, it's nice to watch a Mad Max movie, but we don't want to be in the Mad Max movie, okay?
So yeah, you know, and then the whole border thing is just insane. You know, I always want to try to figure out what is the truth of the matter, what's really going on. So on the border situation, it's like, is it real or is it not real? So I went there in person and I just literally live streamed what I saw. And you know, our border looks like World War Z. Okay, it's like zombie apocalypse. You know, it's insane. So this is, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Yeah, I mean, we're just saying, like, you know, we have to have real borders, or if you don't have real borders, you don't have a real country. And obviously, as someone who's an immigrant, I'm pro-immigrant. I just want to make sure that people who come here are going to be assets to society, and that they're going to raise our standard of living. You know. You know, I think it's like, I think the sort of sports team analogy is a good one. So, like, let's say you're a pro sports team, you want to win the champion, then, well, you aces on your team, the whole team win. You know, so the same is true for immigration. If you know, if we have this sort of equivalent of, like, you know, Kobe Bryant or Steph Curry or LeBron or something like that, they want to join the team. Like, absolutely, of course. Do you like winning? Yeah, okay. But if they can't play basketball, they shouldn't be joining. So that's real important. And yeah, and then something that doesn't get a lot of attention is the fact that the federal government is spending America into bankruptcy. You know, which is crazy. It's sort of, and that's really what leads to inflation. Is that when the government spends more than it brings in, that's what causes inflation. Yeah, so it's just a pernicious tax. So there has to be we have to radically reduce the amount of government spending so that we don't rack up a debt that is impossible to repay and drive the country to bankruptcy. So, I mean, just basic stuff, really, you know. These shouldn't be controversial topics. It's just like normal. Common sense, exactly. And you know, you're seeing all these attacks on freedom of speech, and they're like attacking me for freedom. It's like, yo, that's the First Amendment, like literally the first one. You know, tells me it's a high priority. And the reason they had the First Amendment was because, you know, the countries people came from, if you spoke your mind, you'd be imprisoned or killed. That's why you have it. That's really important. And then the right to bear arms is also really important. That's there to protect, you know. I mean, the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. So, as soon as the government can disarm the people, they can do anything they want. And we've seen this in one country after another. They take the guns away from the people, then they do fake elections, and then the people try to protest and they just get shot. That's what happened in Venezuela recently. They had a fake election. Maduro lost, like massively lost, like, you know, 70% loss. And he's like, oh no, I won. And and everyone's like, oh, you didn't win. There were big protests in the street. But the thing is that Chavez, when he came into power, took away everyone's guns. So now you're facing, you know, soldiers with assault rifles where you're going to throw some sticks at them or something, use finger guns. It doesn't work. So Maduro, even though he lost the election, is still in power. And that's the kind of risk that we face. So but we got to do everything possible to protect the Constitution. And I think this is, yeah. So you know, for all those reasons, that's why, you know, after thinking about it hard, it was very clear to me that Donald Trump has to win this election. It really does. Yeah. And so I think the most important thing that you can do, and what I'm asking everyone to do, is make sure that you're registered to vote, that and then vote early, and then talk to your friends and family and everyone you know to make sure that they're registered to vote, because Monday is the deadline for voting registration. And honestly, this is if there's ever a time to be a pest with your friends and family, this is the time. Yeah. This is the time. Everyone you know, everyone you meet, everyone you run into, register them to vote, and then get them to vote immediately. And we only have until Monday night to register to vote. So the next basically 3 days are essential. And I think we see this election decided in Pennsylvania by, it could be 10,000 votes, it could be 1,000 votes, it could be 10 votes, it could be some very tiny number. So every incremental person is a huge difference. So, I haven't been politically active before. I'm politically active now because I think the future of America and the future of civilization is at stake. So. Yeah. So, yeah, please go all out registering people. We have 3 days. Let's go. Anything you possibly do. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions or take comments from the audience. And yeah. Thank you.
We'll form a line.
Does this mic work?
We'll do one question per person, okay?
Yeah. All right.
Elon, first of all, welcome to Ridley Township.
Thank you.
Delaware County, and welcome to Ridley School District and our beautiful high school.
Yeah.
Because you made this your first stop, we'd love to make honorary Ridley Raider.
Thank you.
Do the shirt, football jersey. Sports is big in Ridley, big in Delaware County. This is must 67 counties in Pennsylvania. We got to turn wonderful red.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
First question is, what can all of us here, everybody in this auditorium, everybody watching the live stream, what can we do now to make sure we get Donald Trump across the finish line in Pennsylvania and everywhere else in this country?
Yeah, it's fundamentally for the next 3 days, just everyone needs to focus on registering friends, family, acquaintances, everyone you know. Because if you're not registered by Monday, that's why I'm being sort of repetitive about this and really emphasizing this. Anyone not registered by Monday evening, or if they're registered incorrectly, their vote won't count. They won't be able to vote. So we got 3 days. It's all about registration, 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 registration every single day. And like I said, this election could be decided by a handful of people. It could just be that a little bit of extra effort on voter registration decides the entire future of civilization. So that's why I'm saying, man, this is, if there's ever a weekend to spend going hog wild on registration, this is it. Yeah. Whoa!
Thank you so much for being here. It means so much, and I think it's really in line with your character as I've come to know you from listening to you speak in interviews. In addition to voting for Donald Trump, what can the average citizen do to help train AI to be truth-seeking?
Well, I think definitely, publicly pushing to ensure that AI is truth-seeking and is not sort of politically correct, or which means factually incorrect. that's a big deal. Like, just speak out on social media, and certainly complain loudly when other companies attempt to essentially program their AI with a dystopian San Francisco, Berkeley philosophy. And if you want to know where that philosophy leads, just walk around the streets of San Francisco. But be careful, because do not get killed by a violent drug zombie, because they're all over this downtown SF. It's insane. So you can see what, where does that philosophy lead? And unfortunately, I think a lot of the AIs are being programmed, at least implicitly, with that misanthropic dystopian philosophy. Yeah.
Hi, Elon, right here, on your right.
Sorry, so with the lights in my eyes and stuff, it's hard to see, so, yeah.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm originally from Malaysia, and I've been here 20 years. I came here legally. I see a lot of immigration and a lot of immigrants who came here legally. We all support Trump, and they want a strong economy. They want, family values and all that. And oh, by the way, I came here because my daughter goes to school here. She told me to come over. I used to be really, really active in promoting, Trump campaign. I'm so frustrated, and it's all.
And at a four-place table, trying to keep it entirely to himself.
There is, I think,